Alright, looks like I fixed that. So, oh, my fat fucking head frame it all. Alright. Well, it looks like I may have fixed my exposure problem. Alright, so this is just going to be a test. Actually, it's not going to be a test. I think I got it. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just flaring the blowpipe out. I wanted to test my exposure, but while I'm at it, might as well flare out a blowpipe. Now, today's going to be another $5 bead day, but we're going to go a little bigger with the beads than I normally do, because I'm trying an experiment. I'm trying an experiment. I'm short. Let me get my fat head in here. Alright, so the exposure looks like it might be a little dark actually. Now, I want you to see the candles. I want you to see the actual glass. So we'll try it, see what happens. I'm just gonna doink that on there like that. Round that out a little bit. Whatever. I don't even know what color this is. It had a label on it, but that's a stock label from probably Whale. Not necessarily the manufacturer of the color. I hate when companies do that. There's no reason to have your own stock number when there's already a stock number in existence for that product. Alright, so we're going to get this nice and hot. Stick that together like that. Yeah, now this is a pretty sharp reduction flame. You can tell because of the, I'll point it out in a second here. This long candle here, I'm gonna tighten that up. There we go. Now I tighten that up by using the far left oxygen. And I'm actually gonna give it a little bit more heat and then crack the outer oxygen. There we go. I'm just gonna pull this into a stringer and let the cards fall where they may. Then I don't know what the color this is. I'm trying to do as much as I can on camera. It's just cobalt 2. I know what it is now. Or straight cobalt. That's okay. That's good. I like that color. Yeah. It's a little dark, but that's okay because it's going to get real bright again in a second. So I have all these chunks here, all these chunks of blue I'm going to throw into the kiln. Actually, I'm not even going to really throw them in the kiln. I'm just going to put them next to it. Let's see if we can fix this exposure a little. It might get flashy. We're going to try it. We're going to try that. So we're gonna try auto exposure. I had it fixed exposure, but it looked like what it was doing. Yeah, okay, so let's see what happens. I may or may, actually I am gonna post this video just because I can. And so that's silver perfuming. That's orange. Oh, you know what? We're gonna make some creamsicle. Whoa. And my buddy George, my mentor, told me with these old crayon colors, crayon. My wife makes fun of me because of the way I say crayon, crowns. They melt, they boil really bad. So he said to just use the outer flame and not the inner flame. That's what happens. I actually had pretty good luck doing this the other day. So. Sometimes you don't want to case a color. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Casing is when you literally put it in clear. I was trying to figure out why I had all these goofy pieces of color floating around, and then it dawned on me when I shut down my studio, I use that term loosely, when I packed up all this, my stuff in my basement in my old house, I literally just threw the stuff in I snapped the ends off of everything and then threw it all into that can and brought that whole can over here. Actually, it was a different container. Now, whoops. Yeah, it actually kind of looks like it's working somewhat. It's better than it was. Alright. So that's there. What I need to do, just dawned on me. Okay, yeah, that's there. Now let's see if it cracks. I am going to case this, just not right this second. I'm going to try this is kind of an experiment here. And the exposure bouncing in and out is a little annoying, but that's what I have to do to get so you can actually see the candles on the flame, which these are the candles right there. That's the candle. And I adjusted my GoPro mount. Okay, so I'm going to hot box this, or I'm going to garage this. See what happens to this. This is going to probably pop. It didn't pop. This particular piece of blue is actually hollow. Smoking out of feathers. So this is a tube, this is a blowpipe. I'm gonna try an experiment. I bought this color to experiment with, and the experiment was a failure, which it happens. I mean, like, not every project works out. I mean, that's just the way it is. I made bad pizza dough last night. It happens. I made laughably bad pizza dough last night. Don't add more gluten to pizza dough unless you're using all-purpose flour. If you're using bread flour, you don't need gluten in your pizza dough. Imagine that. Okay, so we got that there. I wonder what would happen if I tried to heat this up. I bet you this is going to pop even though it was in the kiln. Hey, look at that. More. One of the problems, one of the known issues, it's not a problem, it's a known issue that if you pay attention to it, it's not an issue, is that GTT torches can overheat. So I have to keep these candles pretty long. And every once in a while, I'll check the front of the torch to make sure that they're not, to make sure that the front of the torch isn't glowing red. If you don't have this back oxygen, open, it'll do that. It's a known issue. If you own a GTT torch and you read Willie and Wally's or watched Willie and Wally's video that comes with the torch, you'll know that that's an issue. The other way you can do it is to actually crank up your propane. If you crank up the fuel, ironically, it will lower the face temperature of the torch. You need to get the oxygen away. Basically what it is you need to get the oxygen away from the you need to get the oxygen away from the front of the torch, because that is what causes the front of the torch to burn. I'm not sure if they fixed that problem. I highly doubt they did. You can get your torch face resurfaced, but it's expensive and it's time consuming, and it's really not something that you want to do if you don't have to, from what I've been told. Alright, so now we're going to smush this one. I did that because I want the color to be a little weirder. What I'm doing here, or what I'm going to try to do here, is to actually blow this into a ball. Actually looks really cool. I might not do that. I might just leave that just like that. That's really cool looking. The shape is cool looking. It's a really cool shape. See the shape? Yeah, I like that shape. No, we're not gonna blow that into a ball. We're just gonna leave it just how it is. Interesting. You never know. Like I said, these are all, $5 beads, $7.50 beads. Really, it's just practice. For me, it's just practice and getting rid of scrap. In an era of obsessive recycling, what I ought to do if I was smart, which I've never been accused of being smart, is market these as recycled glass beads. Yeah, that's a winner. I am admittedly a little excited for this show coming up. I need to reach out to a couple other people. There's another show I want to do that is sponsored by my old high school. I want to do it for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is I it's gonna sound kind of silly. I want to support. It's not silly actually. The show, the art show, craft show, or whatever it is sponsored by the band, Pencrest Band. So I kind of wanted to look at that. I kind of really like that one. Let's see if we can get a trick camera here. I really like that one. All right, now let's make some. Keep bumping my head on the camera. So that pop there is generally the most exciting thing you'll get out of me. I don't catch myself on fire a whole lot, sadly. I know that upsets some of my bigger fans that I don't catch myself on fire every time I do this. But sorry guys, I don't like to do that anymore. All right, now let's pick this up. Now this piece of white that's in my hand here is cased already. This was a stringer. This was a stringer. The other thing with this white is it's a boro stick. Boro sticks are kind of unique because they're a powder, they're frit that is formed, they're frit that's formed into a stick. Now that has a couple advantages, it has a couple of disadvantages. One of the advantages I have found is that it doesn't boil as quickly as this orange or the other chrome colors. It's not really a chrome color, even though it did just boil. Now, I'm going to try to case as much of this orange with this white as I can before I run out of white. And then I'm going to spin it all up into like a blob, and then I'm going to pull it out again. At least that's the game plan. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. Guess what? Hot glass sticks to hot glass. Fudge. Alright. That's okay. Like I said, this is kind of an experimentation stringer here. Interestingly enough, I have run out of jointed handles. Looks like I'm holding the last one in my hand, which is okay. Oh, there's one. There we go. Yeah, this is going to be an experiment. I like that orange, but it's very orange. Now, as per instructions from my mentor, I've turned off my inner flame and I'm just using the outer flame. I'm going to mash this a little. One of the bummers with the Phantom torch is it doesn't have a positive rack and pinion. It doesn't have a positive mount, so every time I push on it with any kind of force, it has a tendency to move the torch head. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not ideal. Okay, now I'm going to pull this out a little. This is an experiment. Alright, I'm going to spin this thing pretty good. I want to see if I can get a lighter shade of orange. almost like a creamsicle orange, as opposed to the straight up like bright Flyers orange. I mean, it's cool orange, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely pretty bright orange, and it's what you see is what you get. Pull it out again. I've never tried this. I was watching a video not long ago, and the artist was using a color that I've used in the past and had mixed results with, and apparently the reason I was having mixed results with this color is because I wasn't using it properly, which is not shocking. I'm self-taught. Alright, so that's that. I'm going to fold it again. And then we're going to call it, and then we're going to use it on something. I may even just case it and make a bead out of it. I'm not a huge orange fan, but it does have its place. There are a lot of places to use that. I was making, for the longest time, I made little Nemo fish, painted clownfish, basically, because the movie Finding Nemo was very popular, very popular film when I was first starting to blow glass. My son loved the movie. Actually, kind of liked it too. From an adult's perspective, I kind of liked it. So I made a lot of little Nemo fish for a while. I haven't made any in a long time. I made 2 or 3 that really looked like fish, and then that was the end of it. Another case of me just being lazy, because they're very difficult to make. Time consuming, not necessarily difficult. Alright, I'm going to put one more spin on this, flatten it out again, case it, and I'm going to heavily case it, because this is going to be, actually, yeah, I'm going to heavily case this. Okay, so that's like that. Alright. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to case that. We're just going to make that bead exactly how it is. Mainly because I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. Sometimes when you case stuff, you change what you're doing. I didn't case the orange, so I kind of want to see how it looks. I'm going to let that cool for a second. I'm going to turn my outer fire off, inner fire on, outer fire off, inner fire on, crack that one. I want a little bit tighter of a flame. I find that this flame is very good for making Camera's too hot. Whatever. When I get a little bit of spare cash, I'm buying a new camera. GoPro is, it's not that close to the flame. The camera, the physical camera itself does not feel hot. I'm gonna stop recording when I'm done with this one, let it everything cool down. That didn't work. So what's the problem here, and I'm gonna just get rid of this glass, is where I'm trying to work here is a joint. I can tell there's something not happy about this little hunk of glass right here. I'm gonna pull it off and I wanna throw it away. So I'm gonna get some fresh glass. Cigarette out. And I'll melt all this, should be fresh glass, back together. Just, it had a joint in it right there, and it didn't want to pull out evenly. And there it goes, it's a little nicer. For whatever reason, that joint didn't want to pull clean. It just was lumpy. So I'm on the underside of the flame. You can't really tell from that angle. I'm working on that camera angle where it's the camera can be almost in the orientation in which I'm working, so you can kind of see exactly what I'm doing. If you're not literally standing right behind me with your chin on my head, it's very difficult to see exactly what I'm doing. I've seen a couple guys mount cameras on their heads, which actually is not a bad idea. I just don't feel like doing that. I have a helmet mount, which I think I've tried in the past. Sitting here with a helmet on while I'm blowing glass is not really something I'm crazy about. I'm on the underside of the flame trying to get this to flow. Oh, there we go, it flowed. Now I'm just gonna give it a little of that. Doing that gimbal arm thing that you can't really see too well. Okay, so that, no, I don't like that. I'm not crazy about the way that bail turned out, but that's okay. I've been having a few debates here and there with my manager about that stuff. It's another thing I just started doing, which I never used to do. I'm just taking the bead and running it on the marver real quick, just to kind of knock some of the nipple off of it, you know, where the punt rod was. It's not a nipple. I call it a nipple. Okay, so there's the bead. I know it's hard to see against the black, but the black brings the exposure back up, because that's what the exposure is. Yeah, see, that works pretty good. Trick the camera. All right. Now that will turn bright orange after it cools down. The reason it's dark right now is that it's still really hot. Probably light a cigarette. I could light a cigarette off. That's about that. Let's see what happens with this. This is just the nubbins that I had thrown in the kiln the other day. It was in my scrap bin. It's a blue exotic color, but it's apparently when I threw it in the bin, it cracked really bad, so it's gonna have a lot of bubbles in it. It's got a lot of trash. I should probably throw it away. I'm not gonna do that because expensive and $5 bead. Sometimes with beads in particular, you can get away with bubbles in them. Marbles you cannot have, unless you intentionally put the bubbles in the marble. You can't have bubbles in your marbles. I gave one to my son yesterday. It had all kinds of bubbles in it. Alright, so we're just gonna heat this up. What I want out of this particular marble here, or piece, is I want what's inside of it. Didn't work. Okay, so that's not going to happen either. I was hoping it was going to naturally be a vortex on the inside, and it's not going to vortex. Vortex marbles are very easy to make, and they're also even easier to screw up. One bad push on a vortex marble and the marble's junk. I hate being so short on material. It's nobody's fault but my own. I didn't plan far enough ahead. So we're going to switch the axis on this piece. Plain cut that off. It doesn't matter. Alright, now just grab a little nubbins here. I'm going to add some clear right to the center of this where the color is. If I can get it to work. There we go. And what this will do is it'll add a little bit of depth to the twist I'm about ready to put into it. In fact, I'm going to add even more. Like I said, I don't normally use pieces that are this short. My fingers are going to get burned in a second. Matter of fact, I guarantee it. Yep. Okay. Oh, burned my fingers. All right. I don't necessarily wanted to use these for this, but I have enough scrap laying here for this. Sorry for the flashy exposure. It looks to me like I'm not going to have a. It looks to me like I'm not going to be able to get a proper. It's either going to be too dark, or it's going to flash, or it'll be too bright. So that kind of sucks. But that's what it is. I'm not hanging my D600 precariously off that mount that I made. Not that I don't trust the mount, but I also don't want to melt my very expensive camera. GoPros are expensive, but they're nowhere near as expensive as my other camera. My other camera would be able to do this. Problem with the other camera is it only records video. It only records 20 minutes of video and then it shuts off. So that's exactly what I wanted. I kind of like these droppy ones because they're really easy to make. There's not a whole lot of thought that has to go into them. We're gonna call this one right there. Okay, so now we're gonna take it out of the flame. I'm gonna cover that up so you can see what's going on here. So I have a pretty decent shape there. It's kind of oblong. It's kind of an oblong shape, and then I'm gonna put a punt rod on the left side, just a disposable punt, which is still right here. So yes, I took this rod off and I'm gonna put this rod back on, but I'm using a different joint to do it with. It's not going to be as permanent. Okay, so just like that. Now I'm going to get back over here. I have the same problem with this piece of glass that I had with the other piece of glass, which is there is a joint here. Now hopefully I won't have the same problem, which is lumpy. And I'm going to get it really hot. Really hot, really far along. And I'm going to stretch it. Yeah, it's still kind of doing the same thing that the other piece was doing. Just kind of give that a second to cool off. Yeah, it looks like it's doing the same thing. It does not show up on camera, but I'm actually looking into the glass. I'm gazing into the matrix of the glass, and the human eye is much more sensitive than that camera. Even though the camera can see some stuff that you can't see. Nah, it didn't work. That's all right. They don't all always work. If everything worked right all the time, you wouldn't need people like me to fix it. Okay, now, nice and wet. Doink. It's actually probably a little too wet. Okay. Just gonna stick that in there and give it a little tug. It's kind of a little cattywampy, but I'm not worried about it. Not on these. Some of these are going to get turned into like pseudo Christmas ornaments. I'm going to just like hang them from my Christmas ornament display, put a $15 price tag on them and see if they go. I had never even considered that years ago. All right. I don't want to bang on my, I don't want to bang on my graphite. Yeah, just knock that off. Knocked it off. Melted the little nubbins in. And there you go. Turned out pretty cool. We'll see what it looks like when it's cool. And now I'm gonna shut everything